Senator Kyl, Ms. Creedon, thank you, and thanks to all the commissioners for your hard work on this commission and the excellent report you've produced. Senator Kyl, the report concludes that the United States needs to be able to deter combined Russian-Chinese aggression. I don't believe we have anywhere near the nuclear force necessary to accomplish that combined deterrence of Russia and China. Frankly, I worry that we don't have enough to deter either one individually, especially given China's breakneck nuclear buildup. So can you tell us how an inadequate nuclear force might invite aggression from these countries, even if it doesn't result in a nuclear war?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Senator Cotton, of course, that gets right to the philosophy of deterrence. The potential enemy has to understand that the costs of aggression exceed the potential benefits. And if he's not sure that the costs of aggression are really going to hurt him that much, then he may be tempted to try. And that's why it's so important for the adversary to believe correctly that we do have the capacity to destroy everything that is dear to them. That's the essence of the deterrent philosophy. The Russians and the Chinese can see what we have. We're pretty transparent about it. And they're pretty, I'm sure they have a very good idea of the status of our deterrent. And so they know when we're coming up against deadlines that we're not likely to meet. They also know this, that our current program of record simply replaces one-for-one capabilities, as Senator Fisher said in her opening statement. It does not account for the new threat from China. That's why when we say we've got, it's necessary for the POR, but it's not sufficient. We mean it's not sufficient because it hasn't calculated China in the equation. So we've got to have the additional capacity, whether it's additional warheads, the composition of those warheads, the deployment of them, different delivery systems, all of those things would go into our calculations as to what we need to deter this additional threat. And it's not just a concerted conduct between Russia and China. It is the possibility that one of them is engaged with us and the other sees the opportunity to then begin to make the mischief that they'd like to make. So it's an opportunistic kind of aggression. And that, I think, is something that we have to calculate in deciding what we need to deter war.
So it doesn't require them to openly cooperate to, say, develop joint target lists that Russia will strike certain bases or missile fields and China will strike others. They can simply observe the behavior of each other, they can signal to each other, and they can take opportunistic, non-nuclear aggressive actions, confident that America, faced with the nuclear overmatch by the two countries combined, or maybe just one country alone, will in the end back down in, say, Eastern Europe, or back down in the Taiwan Strait. Is that the point, Senator Kyl?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Senator Cotton, that's exactly right. And these are two countries that have made no bones about the fact that they intend to be cooperating in the future. I've forgotten the exact phrase they used, but they are bosom buddies when it comes to their goal of making trouble for us. And we have to take that into account.
And I know many in the United States, some in this Senate, certainly lots in Europe, think that nuclear war is somehow unthinkable, that it's not possible to even imagine that, you know, it would result in the end of humanity. Just to be clear who we're dealing with here, we know now, frankly we knew at the time, but we certainly know now because of the opening of Soviet-Russian archives, that that's not the way the Russians saw nuclear war. They viewed nuclear weapons as simply another kind of weapon, and they had plans to fight and to win a nuclear war. Isn't it the case that today's Russia and communist China also view nuclear weapons in just the same way, not as something to never be used, but something that they have active plans to use if necessary to achieve their national goals?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Cotton, our commission spent quite a bit of time on this exact subject. And I think it's the best judgment of the experts in our government that Russia certainly has such a doctrine, and it has been in open sources. The Russian action in Ukraine tend to confirm that doctrine of Russia could certainly be used. It's a little unclear because China is so opaque exactly how they might want to use their nuclear weapons in the future. But what we have to be very, very fearful of is this escalatory ladder, which once you're on is very difficult to control.
Thank you.